Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. It is Thursday. What day is it? It's Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, the year I call 7, and I'm here with Artist Dream Life Sessions 7. Foundational pillars, soul strengthening pillars to building your dream life as an artist. And I'm excited because this is number 2, and it is the mind. Those of you that follow me on my sister page, She's Restored, you know that I just shared about the mind and the mindset. And this just so happens to be our number 2 pillar. The mind is the gatekeeper of our soul. So it is imperative that we know how to take care of our mind, and knowing that having a sound mind is what's going to help us build our dream life as an artist. And guess what? I'm going to teach you how today. So, what is the mind? It is the central nervous system of self. It is interwoven with our heart, and it is part of the trinity of the soul, which is mind, will, and emotions. I teach a lot on this on She's Restored for those of you who are interested in learning more. But of course, we're going to talk about the mind as it pertains to being an artist. Now, last time when I talked about pillar number 1, which is our heart, I talked about the fact that some of us are feelers when it comes to creating, and others of us are more thinkers than we are feelers. And wherever you are is perfect, because that is how God created you. And I am here to encourage you to embrace that, because that is your natural rhythm and tempo for your natural creative flow. But I do encourage you that both are part of who we are. The mind, let's get into this, because this is going to propel us even further as we learn about our true, authentic self, how we were created, and how you are individually created to use these amazing gifts to further paint beautiful pictures and create beautiful sounds for humanity. Okay, so let's get into this. The mind. Our mind is the first point of contact with what we receive and through our senses. So, as we know, we traditionally talk about 5 senses. We actually have more than that, but those are the ones that we acknowledge as the main senses of receiving the outside world, or exchanging self into the outside world. Okay? Our mind is the leader of self. I have teachings on this on my She's Restored channel, where I talk about the mind taking the seat of male, if you will, in terms of leadership, and in terms of guiding the rest of the inner being. The reason this is so important to understand is because when we understand the natural flow of the soul, then we can align ourselves to it. And therefore, we can become one with self, which, after all, that is the building block to creating your authentic masterpiece is to be one with self, which is a whole process, but the mind is the leader, okay? So I just taught on this, but I'm going to teach on it again because some of you don't follow me on Choose Restored. So the mind is comprised of two main realms, okay? We have the subconscious part of the mind, which is the part of the mind that, in a sense, is on autopilot. It is where we have the limbic system of the brain and self. It is where memories are stored. It is really where we access trauma and where we are activating the creative part of the mind and the brain. Then we have the conscious part of the mind, which is present, which is now, which is active, and it is always going. And of course there's more, but those are the two that I'm going to focus on. So I'm going to come to this trinity of the soul, and I'm going to draw a little circle of its flow, because this is important to, I would say, meditate on. And what is meditation? It is to continually focus on any given thing, a thought, a word, a picture, to assimilate it into your consciousness and to make it a part of yourself, okay? So this is, I'm going to call this, well, this is the soul. And the mind is the home of our thoughts and thought processes. And then we have emotions, which come from our heart. And then we have our decisions, which come from our free will. Okay, and they are constantly working and going. So, can you see this? I'm going to try and put it all in the frame. Okay, so our mind is the leader. Our mind influences our heart, which influences our decision making, or our free will, and that is what makes up our life. So our thoughts influence our emotions influence our decisions, and the sum of our decisions is what we call our life. So the mind is amazing and complex, and it would take me probably a few hours to get into its depth and beauty, but I don't have that long. So we're going to talk specifically about the generalities of it and how it relates to our creative process. Okay, so the mind has 4 interconnections and functions. So we have the spiritual mental connection. That is, our mind is connected to our spirit. So there is a spiritual part of the mind. Some would call this God conscious or super conscious part of the mind. Then there's the mental intellectual part of the mind. So that is where we use our logic and reasoning and intellect and knowledge. This is where we basically accumulate knowledge and therefore formulate our thoughts and belief systems based on the knowledge we receive through the intellectual part of the mind. Okay, then there's the mental emotional part of the mind and connection. That is to say directly that the mind connected to the heart, and that influence over the heart. And then there is the mental physical part of the mind, which is essentially our brain, and the effects and influence that our mental state has on our physical well-being. We are spirit, soul, and body. Many of you know I teach this. And so it is a domino effect. The strength of spirit influences the strength of soul, which influences the strength of body. But the central nervous system of this connection, and I would say the condition of the soul, is both reflective and critical to have in good health of the rest of self. Okay, so in other words, my mental state in health and my emotional state in health is contingent on my spiritual well-being, and it is also responsible for my physical well-being. So right in the center is where it all happens, and beginning that center is our mind. Okay, so when it comes to creating, as I mentioned before, some of us are thinkers. We create from the mental space. We use any and all of these interconnections that I just spoke about to create. And just like those of us who are feelers create from our emotional realm and draw from our emotional realm, receive from our emotional realm primarily, thinkers can have both as well. It can be a hindrance at times, but it can also be the most beautiful place to create from. So what we want to know and what we want to learn is, first of all, are you a thinker or are you a feeler? And those of you that missed the last video, I encourage you to watch it. It's uploaded in its entirety on YouTube. And I think I have some of it on Instagram, whatever is allowed. Hopefully those of you who are feelers can gain some nuggets of truth and understanding in the first video, the first pillar. And those of you who are thinkers, this is for you. So creating from the mind and mental space means that we use primarily our logic and our reasoning. So at times, some of the, I suppose, drawbacks to being a thinker, and some of us are overthinkers, is that, well, we might take a while to finish any project because, because we're thinking too much about the finished product and thinking about whether or not we're ready to wrap it up and release it, or perhaps overanalyzing its beauty and impact and influence. And some of these things, they're just part of how we see our creativity. And it's okay, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to help you assess where you are, if you are a thinker. And also gain some tools to help you navigate these areas sometimes that can seem like roadblocks in the creative process. And I would say the same thing happens for feelers. We can get caught in this posture of it's a little overwhelming, and I'm not sure if I am ready to release what I'm doing. But for both of us, what I'm going to share is that all of this is part of the creative process. You must embrace both the, I don't want to say negative, because there's no negativity when it comes to creating. We create from self, which is comprised of both broken and healing to restoration. But the reality is that both of us, thinkers and feelers, can find ourselves in these loops of stagnancy, of self-doubt and self-criticism and self-sabotage, because we are in a space of I kind of want to say it's like a loop. And I guess this is where I'm going first, because I'm thinking on some recent stories and posts that I've seen in our community, which I am so thankful that many of you have the vulnerability to share not just your victories and your successes, but your vulnerabilities and places of struggle and stagnancy and lack of inspiration. Because this is a posture of being real and honest with yourself. It's also a posture of, there's power in sharing your vulnerability and your struggles, because it inspires others to have the courage to do the same. So I suppose as a side note here of just encouragement to those of you who have been transparent about these natural, and they are natural lulls and sometimes roadblocks in our creative process. But this is part of the entire process, is having a look, self-evaluation of areas where I am in a place of things not flowing. Okay, so I'm starting there, and we're going to get into I'm probably going to get more into this connection between the heart and the mind when I talk about the soul. But I'm going to get into it a little bit now, simply to connect the dots from the first video to this video. But I wanted to start with that first because, as I said, it was kind of just on my heart as I was speaking. But there's also this understanding that we must remember that we are the gatekeeper of our mind. We have the power to choose what we believe about ourselves, about others, about God, about the world. And there is a process to strengthening and healing the mind to posture itself to do this, which I taught about recently, and I've taught about before on She's Restored. But it is the same process in the creative process and realm, because when we create, we are literally drawing from our life experience, and we are using, as I mentioned earlier, both broken part of self and healing part of self. And sometimes, if we are in a mental space of struggle or hurt, that is to say, if we're going through something major in our life, if we are healing from something major in our life, all of these things affect how we think and affect how we process, and certainly affect how we create. So I'm going to go ahead and do an exercise for us. To help you gauge where you are right now, mentally, okay? And this is really an exercise that you can do as often as you need to do it, so that you can help yourself daily, or if you're in a rut. But it is to gauge the clarity of your thought process. Now, I stated at the beginning of this video that having a sound mind is foundational to building your dream life as an artist. Okay? Now, what is a sound mind? None of us have it all together perfectly, nor will we ever. But there is a state of being that is sound. It is a place of rest. It is a place of assurance. It is a place of confidence. And it is a place of peace. That is what I mean when I say having a sound mind. This is a place where the mind is operating at its fullest potential, because it has been alleviated of clutter and pain. It has been released of burdens and worries and anxieties. And it has been strengthened with truth. And it is supplemented, hopefully, by a joyful heart. So, where is your mind today? I'd like you to write down 7, because that is the number of the year, and that is the number of our pillars for this year's Dream Life teachings. And it is a powerful number of completion. So I'm going to ask you to write for yourself 7 thoughts that come out right now. Just take a little time and write them down. And what I want you to do for the next 7 days, from the time you're watching this, is to take inventory of those thoughts. And I want you to decipher if these are thoughts that are supporting and complementing my dream life as an artist, or are they getting in the way of my vision for my dream life as an artist. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just give this open invite, for any of you who want to process those thoughts with me. You can message me, and I would be happy to sit and talk with you about where we can go with that. Okay? So, how we think is completely our free will. We have the choice to choose how we think, and therefore how we create and process. Everything that we receive is only allowed into our space of creativity by our yes. So this is an encouragement for those of us specifically who have been through a lot in life and are overwhelmed with thoughts that perhaps we feel are needing some remedy. And I suppose this is another invite. Those of you who are in this space where you might need to sort through some stuff, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, I am here. I do one-to-one sessions. I use music, art, and movement in my therapeutical sessions to help heal the soul. So if you're interested in that, please message me here or on She's Restored, and I would be happy to get you started on your inner healing journey. So, my thinkers, this is a beautiful year for us. A lot of beautiful and epic manifestations of dreams coming true is happening this year. It's already happening. And I'm encouraging you to remember that because you are a thinker, you have an amazing gifting in how you share your work through this beautiful mind that we've been given. And we can both learn from each other, feelers and thinkers. In fact, we do all the time. And I pray that this year we will have the sound mind that we need to continue to build our dream life as an artist. That's all for tonight. I will be sharing more, and I hope everyone's doing well. I know I'm not getting on here as often as I want to, but this is the time for the mind. I love y'all so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.